The line that separates being good from being too good is a thin one, and it is one that should be avoided at all costs. Being a good person to other people is, on the one hand, a really fulfilling experience. An act of kindness performed with another person, or the performance of good actions with other people, without asking anything in return, will ultimately result in a positive emotional response from us. However, it is also important to establish boundaries in this regard. The fact that we are too giving or overly good might have unintended implications for us. Two of them are that we fail to treat ourselves well and that other people mistreat us. In order to ensure that other people do not take advantage of our generosity and that we are able to give ourselves the priority that we deserve, we are going to learn how to differentiate between times when we should be kind and times when we should not be nice. Putting the interests of others ahead of your own is not the same thing as being polite or helping wherever you can. This is the first thing you need to realize. You cannot mistake the two. Try your luck. However, if you consistently ignore your own needs in order to serve the requirements of other people, then you are putting yourself in a precarious position. In the event that you are one of those individuals who are willing to accept any compromise, and have not acquired the ability to say no when it is necessary to say no, you are making a significant error. A person who asks you for a favor and you are unable to fulfill it due to the fact that you have arrangements with another person or that you have other things to perform will be required to have the ability to comprehend the situation. If, on the other hand, you decide to commit to the favor, you are displaying an attitude toward oneself that is not proper. If you say yes to everything, you will eventually develop behaviors that make you emotionally dependent on other people. When you spend too much of your energy trying to make others happy, you begin to neglect yourself. You stop giving yourself the attention you deserve, and as a result, you start seeking that validation from others. In other words, because you are always available for people, you naturally expect them to be available for you in the same way. However, this is not always the case. Be careful. This pattern can lead to emotional exhaustion, which in turn creates tension, anger, and even health problems. Take care not to be too generous. In many cases, when you give too much, people admire you for your kindness and praise you for your good heart. But you must understand that while some will respect your generosity, others will see it as a weakness and take advantage of it. Unfortunately, there are people who actively look for those with kind hearts. Once they realize they can benefit from your compassion, they will not hesitate to use it for their own gain. Sometimes the signs are obvious. For example, a person who only comes to you when they need something, especially if it happens repeatedly, is a clear case. In today's world, it is almost impossible not to encounter such individuals. But the moment you decide to set boundaries, you send a clear message. Their strategy will no longer work. If you want to avoid becoming someone who is overly agreeable, someone who avoids all conflict and suppresses their own opinions, you must learn to say no. Do not become the kind of person who stays silent just to please others. Whenever something makes you uncomfortable, face it. Suppressing your emotions and your truth will only damage your well-being. Do not be afraid of confrontation. Conflict is not inherently negative. When handled with respect and clarity, it can lead to growth and better outcomes. Always express how you feel, but do it with calmness and respect. Remember, life is too short to deny yourself peace or to remain surrounded by people who do not value you. Yes, you may lose some relationships along the way, but you will also gain relationships with people who truly respect your honesty and your boundaries. There is a path toward finding the right people, healthy relationships, but there is also the risk of falling into toxic ones. These relationships rarely appear suddenly. They often develop gradually without us even realizing it. That is why it is important to recognize the signs early, so we can either change the dynamic or walk away. One such pattern is known as the nice guy syndrome. This behavior is characterized by excessive kindness and self-sacrifice. But beneath it, there may be hidden expectations, suppressed frustration, or even emotional imbalance within the relationship. In many cases, a conflict. Being too nice can actually harm you. When you constantly prioritize others and ignore yourself, you lose balance. Stoicism teaches us something important. We must not abandon ourselves in the process of caring for others. There are many types of people in life. Some make our journey easier. Others act like obstacle stones in the road that slow us down. Each of us must decide who we allow into our lives and where we draw boundaries to protect ourselves. Have you ever wondered why some people are always ready to help even when no one asks them to? These individuals often live by compassion. They genuinely want to help and support others. But without awareness and boundaries, even kindness can become something that others exploit. Put an end to the guilt you feel for not doing favors for others or not being available to them all the time. Not doing everything for others does not mean you stop being kind. It means you recognize your own value. Start by creating a list of your priorities. You can still be there for others, but not at the expense of yourself. Organize your life and determine what truly matters most so you know how much time and energy you can give and when. If you already know how to treat others well, then you are fully capable of treating yourself with the same respect and compassion. Do not forget essential but only in the right balance. Being excessively kind to others can place you in a position of subordination. True compassion requires self-respect. Only when you value yourself will you understand that no one is above you. Do not forget essential but only in the right balance. Being excessively kind to others can place you in a position of subordination. True compassion requires self-respect. Only when you value yourself will you understand that no one is above you. At the same time, remember that even with the best intentions, some people will take advantage of your generosity, especially if they know you always say yes. That is why you must learn to pay attention to yourself. Set priorities, establish boundaries. Your strength is within you. This mindset is often referred to as the nice guy syndrome. At first glance, it may seem like simply being a good person, but in reality, it goes much deeper. The nice guy syndrome describes individuals who struggle to say no, who constantly try to maintain a good person image, not always out of genuine nature, but sometimes because they expect something in return. In some cases, it becomes a subtle form of manipulation. The person may try to gain control, receive favors, or earn affection by being excessively accommodating. These individuals are often attentive, kind, and helpful to everyone around them. At first, this seems positive. However, over time, they may begin to believe that others owe them something in return: attention, love, or validation. When they do not receive it, they feel betrayed, as if their kindness has not been rewarded. This can lead to frustration, resentment, and even hostility. The nice guy syndrome is essentially a behavioral pattern in relationships where one partner overindulges, avoids conflict, prioritizes the other person's needs above their own. Stoicism, however, teaches that the most important responsibility is the self. We must learn to dedicate time to ourselves. By stepping away from excessive self-sacrifice, we create space to care for our inner world, to reflect, to grow, and to truly understand who we are. Recognizing this pattern is essential if we want to build healthier relationships. While being caring and empathetic is valuable, it becomes harmful when it leads to self-neglect and dissatisfaction. Over time, several negative consequences may appear. The person who constantly gives may begin to feel anger and frustration as their needs are ignored. These suppressed emotions accumulate and damage the relationship. An imbalanced dynamic can also create tension and a sense of unfairness, especially when one person is always sacrificing for the other. Perhaps most significantly, there is a risk of losing one's own identity. When you constantly put others first, you slowly forget who you are, what you want, and what truly matters to you. That is why balance is essential. These are some of the potential consequences that this dynamic can have on a relationship. The person who constantly plays the good guy role may begin to experience feelings of anger and irritation, because they are always giving in to their partner's demands and goals without considering their own needs. Over time, this leads to an accumulation of negative emotions which inevitably damages the relationship. When one partner continuously sacrifices for the other without balance, the relationship becomes unequal and unstable, creating tension and a growing sense of unfairness. As this imbalance persists, the good guy may gradually lose his sense of identity and autonomy, since he is constantly prioritizing his partner's desires over his own, which can result in emotional dependency and a deep feeling of losing himself. At the same time, communication within the relationship often deteriorates, because the avoidance of conflict and the inability to express personal needs or concerns lead to a lack of honesty and transparency. Without open communication, it becomes increasingly difficult to resolve problems or truly understand one another. This also weakens emotional intimacy, as overcompensation and the lack of emotional honesty prevent a genuine connection from forming. As a result, the good guy may become emotionally dependent on his partner, constantly seeking validation and approval from external sources, which leads to stagnation and a lack of personal growth. If these unhealthy dynamics continue without change, the relationship may ultimately break down, as the accumulated dissatisfaction and discomfort become impossible to sustain over time. Overcoming the nice guy syndrome in a relationship may seem challenging, but it is entirely possible. It requires a combination of transparent communication, clear boundaries, empathy, independence, and the ability to handle conflict in a constructive way, along with consistent self-care and, when necessary, professional guidance. When both partners are willing to work together, it is possible to transform these unhealthy dynamics into a more balanced and fulfilling relationship. Although the process requires time, effort, and commitment, the ultimate goal is to build a relationship based on mutual respect, equality, and emotional support. You have probably heard the phrase that nice guys finish last, and while it may sound cynical, it reflects an important truth. When you stop being good to yourself in the process of being nice to others, you create an imbalance that ultimately harms you. At some point in life, many people feel the pressure to always be the good person, always available, always agreeable, always accommodating. However, this often comes at the cost of self-respect and authenticity. True kindness does not mean suppressing your thoughts, avoiding conflict, or constantly sacrificing your needs. Disagreement does not automatically lead to conflict. In fact, it can be a path to deeper understanding. You must learn to think for yourself, express your own opinions, and stop blindly agreeing with everything others say or do. Do not allow yourself to be treated like a servant to others' expectations. You must find a way to pursue your own goals while still being supportive of others without placing your own ambitions on hold. Learn to say no. Avoid relationships where you are always giving but receiving nothing in return. Recognize manipulative behaviors, especially when others try to make you feel guilty in order to control you. When expressing your concerns, do so calmly and clearly. Healthy relationships require strong communication, especially when addressing difficult or uncomfortable topics. Set your boundaries firmly. Do not allow others to dismiss or ignore you. Stand up for your opinions without aggression, but also without fear. Be patient with yourself and with others, but do not accept situations that constantly drain you. In your professional life, be mindful of overextending yourself. If you are always volunteering, always taking on extra work without being asked, you are unconsciously signaling that your time has no value. If your manager expects more from you because you perform well, then ask for a raise or a promotion. Request additional support or resources instead of silently accepting more workload. Do not allow others to continuously shift their responsibilities onto you. Speak up when your workload becomes excessive and make it clear that balance is necessary. In relationships, avoid giving too much too early. Do not immediately try to impress someone with excessive gestures or material gifts. Instead, allow the connection to develop naturally and ensure that effort is mutual. Do not always be the one initiating everything. Let the other person show interest as well, so you can understand whether they truly value the relationship. Maintain your friendships, your hobbies, and your personal interests. Do not allow your partner to become your entire world. Remember, you do not need another person to be complete. Your self-worth should come from your own actions, not from others' approval. Otherwise, you risk appearing dependent and losing your sense of strength. You can be kind without being taken advantage of. You can be humble without diminishing yourself. Everything is about balance. Work on your confidence and assertiveness. Do not place anyone on a pedestal, as doing so creates unrealistic expectations and distorts reality. No one is perfect. We are all human, with both strengths and flaws. At the same time, do not overcorrect by becoming cold or hostile. The goal is not to stop being kind, but to become balanced in your kindness. People who know you should see consistency, not sudden extremes. For a Stoic, nothing is inherently good or bad. What matters is how we interpret and respond to what happens to us. Life will always present challenges, and the Stoics understood this deeply. That is why they emphasized balance, not excess, not deficiency, but a steady middle path. This is the path that leads to mental clarity, emotional stability, and inner peace. In conclusion, remember these extremes are always harmful. Do not be too agreeable, but do not become cold either. Strive to be kind, but not at the cost of yourself. In doing so, you will become someone genuine, someone respected, and someone capable of building relationships that truly matter.